so maybe
Oh,
not
wow.
that long.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Oh, we're live.
I think we're live.
Excellent. That was simple.
Yeah. So, Mandy's just said, "Am I here at the right time?" So, Mandy,
Yeah.
hopefully you're on here. I'm just going to check on
It
Facebook
has
on
just
my
popped up.
phone.
I've just got a
Oh, has it?
notification to say that you're live.
Oh, great.
So.
Good. Okay, then. So we'll go for it then. So yes, firstly, thank you so much, Kat, for joining me on the first of our kind of official Facebook Lives. I'm going to be doing these every week with the aim of doing them at 12:30 every week. Might need to change that slightly dependent on who can do what. But yeah, the idea is just to find out and hear your entrepreneurial journey so that we can inspire other people in the group to share their journey and also to move forward with their own.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Really excited. Thank you so much for inviting me.
My pleasure. And so the first question I want to ask you is, well, just to give you a potted history. Well, just also, we've got about half an hour. Everyone that's listening, thank you for being here. Do feel free to comment and ask any questions. And hopefully be able to check those. But we've got, just under 30 minutes today. So yes, first thing, I'd love to know, Kat, just a potted history of you, your background, how you got to where you are now. Go.
So I'll start with where I am right now. So I'm the social entrepreneur coach, helping social entrepreneurs measure and communicate their social impact better and their environmental impact so that they can grow and expand. For me, I'm really, really passionate about social entrepreneurs kind of making the money they need to make so they can deliver the impact that they want. And I think it's really important that social entrepreneurs are profitable and sustainable. So that's really how I help social entrepreneurs. But how did I get here? It started back in 2013 was when I really became an entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur. Before that, I'd always worked in the third sector, a little bit in public sector, and always had to sort of fundraise or apply for grants for my roles. So from certainly from the age of 23, when I moved to London for my first job in the not-for-profit sector, I had to kind of find the money to pay for my job roles and the projects that I was running and stuff, which was always great fun, and I loved doing that. But yeah, I didn't become an entrepreneur till 2013, when me and my friend were given one of those kind of bizarre opportunities, which never think comes up, but did for us, where we were offered to take over a very small sort of not-for-profit organisation and education programme that was coming to an end. Like the board had kind of just lost some energy and weren't sure how they were going to secure future funding, and so they wanted to kind of close up, really. But we just happened to have a conversation with them at the right time, and the chief exec was like, we'd really love to see this continue, the programme, so if you think you can bring new life to it, you can find a way to fund it, then we'd love to basically hand it over to you. And at the time, I still don't really know anything about social entrepreneurship, but my friend Jen, who we were both given the opportunity together, had just done her master's in business and community and was raving about this concept of social entrepreneurship to me. And she thought, we would be able to create a trading business model. And I was quite confident that certainly in the first six months to a year, we could, with my experience, sort of secure grant funding to maintain it. And we also at that time had two of their business partners who were kind of part funding some of the program, who were willing to kind of continue to part fund some of the program for the year that we kind of transitioned to become the directors of it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's since then really that I spent just over 3 years with Jen running Solutions for the Planet, still on the board of that, but I decided to sort of step out of the operational day-to-day stuff after about 3 years, because it wasn't fitting. I wasn't really having the balance as much as it was my dream job, and it was a really difficult decision to leave. We were on the road 4 nights a week, and that wasn't going to change, and we couldn't really adapt my role for that had any benefit to the business, so that I could kind of spend more time at home. So it was just one of those decisions to step away from the operational side of it. But since then, Jen's been chief exec on her own since then and grown a team of 5 incredible people across the UK. We deliver the programme to about 4,000 kids a year. So it's a huge success. And I, from there, decided that because I was so passionate about social entrepreneurship, I wanted to help more social entrepreneurs thrive. And so that's why I kind of set up Share Impact to do that, and particularly to help social entrepreneurs measure and communicate their impact better, because I felt that that's how we'd really successfully secured other corporate partners for our programme, was really understanding our impact and how we were able to communicate it and match it to corporate need, basically.
Okay, fantastic. And were you always interested in running your own business? Had that always been something that you thought of, or did you kind of fall into it?
I never thought. I think always. I suppose when I started my career, when I was at 2023, I was given an opportunity to go and run a not-for-profit in London, and it wasn't until that point sort of that I realised I could do it, what it entailed, and actually I felt, I really loved it. It was a huge learning curve for me at the time, but I realised from that point, yes, I wasn't really thinking about business, but I think I knew I wanted to be running and setting up and leading organisations.
Okay.
So it wasn't so much about business, but definitely I was like fascinated and was always thinking like, what's going to be the next thing I'm leading or setting up or developing with people. I'm just going to move because I do need to plug my phone in, because even though it was charged, it's rubbish and it's all gone now.
That's
that we're
cool.
using all the power on this. So I'll sit over here instead.
What would you say was the hardest part of I was going to say starting your own business, but also staying in running your own business, if that makes sense?
What was the hardest part of starting it?
Because I suppose it's different. You were given that opportunity, so it wasn't like, because I think a lot of people struggle with finding the right market, knowing who their audience are, and it sounds like that was almost kind of handed to you. It was already there. So what
I think for us, it didn't have any challenge out. Oh, sorry. We didn't have any challenges about the hardest part wasn't sort of the actual setup necessarily. It was that decision about, are we this go in and making kind of thing. So that was the real big challenge. I think personally, kind of just deciding like, if we're going for it, we're going for it and we're all in kind of thing. But once we'd made that decision, yes, there was challenges in those first few years, as there always is with business. But I think one of the reasons we had success was because of the way we approached challenges, I think, and the fact that there was 2 of us. So, having now set up a business on my own, it was definitely easier with the 2 of us, because we always had somebody else to kind of talk things through, to kind of, we'd often be worried about different things or kind of raise concerns, and then could reassure one another, or just support one another through those challenges and thoughts. And I think we just really, the thing that got us through most of the challenges we found, I think, was really our focus on the vision of what we were trying to create and the love of what we were creating through the work that we were doing with young people, but also with businesses.
And what about when you did start up on your own? What were the biggest challenges with that?
I think the first thing was probably deciding like what to charge, which is one of the things now that I help with people with most, because I just didn't really have I knew where I wanted to be, but I didn't really know what the market was. And I suppose at that time, I thought, which I think many of us do, thought what I was creating was completely unique and that nobody had ever thought about it before. But it was more the fact that I just hadn't really come into contact with the people that were doing similar stuff to me. Maybe they weren't doing it in the same way as me, but I hadn't sort of found those people initially. So it was very hard to kind of think, well, what are people going to pay, or more so like, what do I need to charge to make the business successful? And at the start, I think certainly for me anyway, I know this is the case for lots of my clients as well, you're willing to kind of just do lots of things either for free or very cheaply to kind of just get out there and test things out and, have clients and work with people, which isn't the best approach at all and isn't what I advise people now. But I think that was one of the biggest challenges. And I think looking back, if I would have changed the way, if I'd had me where I am now talking to me then, I would have said, you need to just really work out and charge a lot more, and be a bit more confident in what you're actually sharing and giving people, and the support you're providing, and position yourself at the right market level, really, I would say.
Brilliant. And that pretty much answered my next question, which was about knowing what you know now. What advice would you give to the younger you? Is there anything else you'd add to that?
I think the only other thing I would add is probably to have gone on Facebook Lives and do live video a lot more sooner. Because
okay.
once
Well,
I
good.
started, because once I started doing that in my business, things really changed.
Really?
And it wasn't just about Facebook Lives, but I think just showing up, being more open and sharing my story, and kind of getting people, like allowing people to connect with me as me, not just the person running a business. I think in the way that you do perfectly, I think you do it brilliantly. I wish I'd kind of, because I think I realised that that's what lots of people were doing. Well, actually, lots of people weren't doing it at the time, but some of the people I was following were encouraging me and others to do that. And I think it took me a long time to get out of my own way and kind of go, you know what, I'm actually going to start doing this. And yeah, it's one of the things now I recommend to everybody I work with. But also, I love doing it now as well. And I love doing these kind of things. And I can see how it makes people connect and get to know me a lot quicker, which I think is really powerful.
Brilliant. That's great advice. So I think there were a couple of things there. One was about, charging sort of what you're worth and from the beginning, and jumping on and doing these sort of Facebook Lives and really getting out there and communicating with the people so they can really get to see you and what you're about and connect.
Absolutely.
So on the charging thing, because I know that's kind of quite a big thing for people, and I think especially, and I know this is something you talked about before, but particularly with social entrepreneurs and people that are really, motivated to make a positive impact, they struggle with the whole, how much should I charge? And so what could you tell us a little bit more about mindset, how you got around that? And
no, definitely. So I think sorry, I think there's just a bit of a delay. Sorry. I think one of the things is really like working out what you need to charge. So working out what you need to be, earning in the business and earning for yourself to make the business work. So particularly if you're a social entrepreneur and you're probably doing other things to maybe your core activities to generate the income, or maybe you want to have impact in other areas, whatever it is, whatever your running costs are to run whatever business is. And you need to work all that out in advance. So many of my clients have never done a budget or a business plan and stuff. And I think it's just the basic stuff, and it doesn't have to be hugely complicated. It can be very straightforward in terms of just kind of getting rough estimates of like what is the income that we're trying to achieve and work towards. And also like not saying, oh, well, actually in the first few months, it doesn't matter, I'll just earn half as much as I did before, or, I'll make do. Don't put in what you really want to earn, and then because it'll take time to achieve it anyway in most situations, but I think it's really good to get focused really quickly on what is it that we're trying to achieve each month or each quarter, so you can get serious on that. And in terms of and then you can work out how much you need to be charging based on how many clients or how many products you need to be selling, and all the profit margins and things of that. So you can then work out your pricing and costs from there. I think it depends. There's different approaches, obviously, if you've got a product-based business to a service-based business. I generally work with service-based businesses, but you can kind of work things out backwards from that point. And then the other second part, sorry, you were asking about social entrepreneurs in particular. Charging.
I think
one of no, go on.
I was going to say, I think you answered a lot of it there, but go on, tell me more, because you were.
I was just saying, like, I think for some reason, lots of social entrepreneurs think they need to be lower than market rate. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. But I would say if you're a social entrepreneur and you have a good product or service that delivers what it needs to deliver for the client or the customer, like it's solving a problem, or it's giving them what they need, it's meeting their want or desire, and it's of as good, if not better quality than everything else that's on the market, then there is no reason why you shouldn't be charging the same or more.
Yeah.
Being a social entrepreneur does not mean you have to charge less. The reason, I think, one of the reasons why I think lots of social entrepreneurs charge less for things is because they mix two things up. They want to be helping people who maybe can't afford their products or services, which is absolutely fine. Like, that might be the purpose they've set up in business. But before they're able to do that, they actually need to generate an income to sort of enable them to provide cheaper services or free services. So they need to have other income. Like, you cannot generate an income from people who cannot pay for your services. Like, I mean, I know that sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised how many social entrepreneurs are trying to do that. They're trying to sell things to people that they know can't pay, and then they're wondering why they're not buying it, and kind of like constantly asking me, well, how do I sell things to people that can't afford it? You can't, and it's not right. It's not ethical. So stop doing it. What you need to do is look at your business and go, well, how are we going to generate the income we need and want so that we can actually deliver the services that absolutely are needed to those people that we want to be able to deliver them, but we know can't afford it. That's what a social enterprise is. And it's kind of, there's lots of different ways to do that. So, you know, maybe you deliver exactly the same service, but to people that can afford it and can pay for it, and that they know that when they're purchasing that thing, they're enabling somebody else to access that service for free. You know, lots of, even on the simplest of business, not simplest, but in terms of the business model, like people that deliver training or workshops, you can have a 1-for-1 model. So if you put on a training and I pay for that training, I'm paying both for myself and for somebody else to come to that training that wouldn't otherwise be able to access it. Simplest of models. Yeah, it doesn't have to necessarily be that. There's lots of other ways as well. But I think it's often that confusion of, we have to generate an income. And I think the difference for me as well is that the difference between a social enterprise and a charity is a charity will secure donations, funding, sponsorship, grants to do that work for free for people. Whereas a social enterprise will have a business model to generate that income. And yes, they might apply for grants or crowdfunding initially to pilot things, but at some point they've got to have a trading business model to generate the income to deliver the work that they want to deliver and create the impact they want to have.
Brilliant. I'm going to jump ahead on my questions, because I think it links in with what you've just said there, which is, well, what do you see the future of business looking like? Because you've talked about charities, social enterprises. I've got some thoughts on this. I'd love to know yours.
I'd love to know yours too. So I think for me, well, you know this, that like my vision is that we have an economy of social entrepreneurs, like, and social enterprises. That for me, the future and the normal way we do business has to be social entrepreneurship in all its diversity. Like, to me, social entrepreneurship isn't one thing, and I think we get way too hung up at the moment on what social entrepreneurship is. But I think, you know, the key principles are clear for most people, and I think it's really about just, you know, we're at the very start of this journey. So there's going to be mistakes, there's going to be lots of innovation, there's going to be lots of radical change. We're going to do things wrong, but I think what's exciting for me is it's really growing quite at a fast rate, but I want to see it more. I think the biggest risk to creating a social enterprise economy is the fact that people aren't ambitious enough about the profit they need to make, that they're not serious enough about their business model, and that they won't get out of their own way to like work on their mindset stuff to really create the changes that they need with their business to move forward. And you know, lots of people might say that's quite harsh, but I think the changes needed that social entrepreneurship can bring are too urgent. And I think I'm quite unapologetic about encouraging and pushing people to go faster.
Brilliant. I love that.
We haven't got time.
And it's you're taking that position of leadership to influence people in a way that's going to be a positive change for them and for our world, which is very cool. And I mean, I guess my kind of view on it is, I think I'd love to see it being the new norm. So it's like your focus is very much around the social entrepreneurship. What would you say about the businesses who have historically been very profit driven, like more, I'd say, conventional businesses? What hope do you think we have there in terms of persuading and influencing those sort of companies to think differently? Did you hear
Some
that?
businesses want to transform in the way. Yeah, I did. Sorry. So some things I think some businesses are and will transform because they will have leaders like us who see the future and what's required. And I've already seen that. So I interviewed. There's a couple of different businesses here in Wales. There's a transport company, like a train company that is a social enterprise. We have our utilities in Wales. Welsh Water is a social enterprise. It's publicly owned. I interviewed somebody, I can't remember his name now, Philip Ullman, who his business was a recruitment company. It's a very successful recruitment company. And it was a family-run business. And as a family, they were very profitable. The business was very profitable for the family. They decided to become a social enterprise and to kind of limit the profits that they individually and as a family would make, because they saw the need and value of doing that, both for their employees and the people they were trying to support, and just that this is the way that business is changing. So I think there is a shift in leadership and how leaders are choosing to run their businesses. I think it's not at the scale we need it to be, and I think there's a lot of cynical activity going. Well, I'm cynical about it. It's not necessarily cynical. I'm cynical about a lot of the stuff that's happening, that businesses recognise that the demand from the public is changing, but they're not really willing to change. So I think one of the biggest things that isn't going to change in business is private shareholder profit, and which is obviously the biggest challenge, because that means that reinforces an unequal wealth across the globe, and shareholders want to protect that. I can to an extent understand that, but I think you've either got to be individual or collective, and kind of, it's a position that you take. So my daughter's just coming to say hello. And so I think I'm cynical about a lot of brands and businesses that I think won't change, but I'm hopeful that they therefore won't survive, because I think increasingly the public and consumers see through it. And I think we're becoming more aware of when people are greenwashing, whitewashing, running campaigns to try and be better in whatever way they think is better, but actually they're not doing anything to change the status quo or structurally change their system that causes the problems. Like, for example, fast fashion. Most big high street fashion brands have recently had, we've got this new organic line, or we've got a new return and recycle line, or we're doing something around, we've got this fair trade line. I'm not saying they're not, that's great, but they're not structurally changing the fashion industry, which they have the power to do. They're not ensuring that workers across Bangladesh and India in their supply chain are being paid well, that they're safe at work, that, their kids go to school. They're not doing that, and they're not protecting human rights. That's the change that needs to happen, and I think we as consumers and the public are the only ones that will make that change happen, because we have the power to decide whether those brands, and you know who they are, I'm not going to name them, but we have the power to decide whether they continue or whether they die. And frankly, I don't really care whether they go.
Well, great. And power to the people, everyone. Consumers, we need to be part of this change as well, to demand that from these companies. That is fantastic. Thank you. Anyone with any comments, opinions on this, or questions, drop them in the comments, and we'll see if we can answer those in a second. And just before I forget, I should say this at the end. Just remind me if I haven't asked you to tell people where they can find out about you. So the other thing I just would love to know is, well, again, pretty much answered it, but why do you do what you do?
I think for me, like, one of the things when I was starting out and I was like trying to figure out, like, what social enterprise do I set up next? What do I do? What am I really passionate about? I realized quite soon on that I was quite multi-passionate, and that doing one thing, I setting up a business in one area was not going to be enough. So which is why I kind of set up Share Impact to help lots of different businesses, because where I get energy from is not only being and talking with lots of different people and learning about what they do, but actually getting inside and seeing the workings of different businesses around a whole array of areas. So for me, most of my clients fall into the categories of like environmental sustainability, women's empowerment and leadership, education, social justice. Yeah, those are the kind of areas that I'm most interested in. And it's easier for me now to be able to kind of pursue those passions and those interests through the clients that I work with in lots of different areas, rather than trying to bring all that together in some kind of strange one business. And so for me, it's really about creating that change. Why I do what I do is about creating the change I want to see in the world, which I know is cliche and everybody says it, but for me, that's just what it is. It's like I've never, and I've always been in a very lucky position that I've always had jobs where I've been doing that. I've always been doing social justice work, education work, but I'm, my background in terms of what I did at degree level was peace, and I was always was peace studies, and I was always interested in peace education and stuff. So I've always been socially minded and wanted to create that change. And so it's great now that I get to do that, not only in my own business, but also help others do that and pursue their passions and purpose. And I think we need so much more of that.
Fantastic. I love it. Brilliant. Let's just have a look and see if there's any questions. I know I can't actually see who's written what on here. Let me see if I can go onto the page and see what anyone said. Whilst I'm doing that, Kat, could you just tell everyone how they can find out about you?
Yeah, of course.
And, where they can find you.
Yeah, of course. So you can find me at my website, which is www.shareimpact.org, or you can check me out on Facebook. I have a page, Share Impact, or a group called the Impact Entrepreneurs Club. I'm also on Instagram at Kat Luckock Coaching. So it's KATLUCKOCK Coaching. So yeah, we'd love to connect with anybody that's interested to have a continued conversation or answer any questions.
Brilliant, thank you. And your Facebook group's great and lots of lively conversation on there. So
thank you.
Mandy says, and Mandy, I think are you in France now? I'm not sure. If the consumer wants to change things, they have to be prepared to pay a true value for what they are buying. And great to listen in on your conversation. I agree with what you're saying, Kat. I think purpose-driven social enterprises need to be more profit-focused to become financially sustainable, and more profit-driven businesses need to become more purpose-driven to attract talent and customers. Yeah, totally agree with that. What do you? I presume you do too.
Catherine, can I come back to that? The first comment you said about paying more for,
that was
paying for the true value of things, because I think that's so important. And I think, one of the criticisms or the things that people come back on that is like, what about people in our society, which is, the dominant part of our society, who, can't afford to buy lots of things, or can't afford, to buy more expensive things. And I do, I recognize that. And most of us face that challenge. But I do think it's one of the biggest things which people struggle with is this is about structural shift. And I think it's about recognizing on multiple levels that, I'm trying to make this simple for speed wise, but I think, when we buy less, we have less things, we consume less, there's less energy used, there's less water used, there's less waste. And so it's part of that structural shift that we're talking about. It's not just about, yes, paying people fair wages for the work that they do and the things they create. It's actually about purchasing and owning less, because we can't keep consuming at the rate that we're consuming, and the way when we do that and when we consume lots, we're stopping other people from even having basic things. And we're stopping future generations having even basic things like fresh air, clean water, a planet to live on. And I know that sounds extreme for lots of people, but that is where we are at these days. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm saying these are huge conversations that we need to be having more, i.e. on here with you. And I know you have these conversations all the time, but it's at that level that we need to make these shifts and recognise as consumers that's where we're making our choices. Brilliant.
And we're pretty much out of time, so I think that's a good note to end on. And Kat, once again, thank you so much. I think I found that useful and inspiring. I hope everyone listening did too. If you, like you said, if anyone wants to continue the conversation with Kat, join her Facebook group, and perhaps I can post in the links to your group and things, so people can find it. Yeah, thank you, and we'll see you soon.
So see you soon. Thanks very much, Catherine. It was lovely speaking to you. Bye.
Thank you. All right, bye.